Everybody, in this video, I'm going to go through our lesson on basic units and measurement. And the first thing I'm actually going to have us do is create a table. In this table, we are going to talk about the different types of units. So that will be in this first column, type of, need my pen to get along with me. We have the type of unit, and then we're going to talk about some examples in the customary system. And that is really the system that we use in the United States. And then we'll compare that to the metric system. All right, first type of unit we're going to talk about are units talking about length or distance. How far away is Miami from here? Or how tall am I? How long is my pencil? All of these are units of length, and we might perhaps use in the customary system inches, abbreviated IN. We might use feet, which we abbreviate FT. And remember, 1 foot is 12 inches. We might use yards, abbreviated YD. Maybe we're going to use miles, abbreviated MI. Those are all examples of units of length in the customary system, units that we are familiar with here in the United States. The metric system works with meters, and that's abbreviated with a lowercase m. So from here, you could have millimeters or centimeters or kilometers, right? All of these different types or versions of a meter. A millimeter is super small, a kilometer is very large. So that is length and distance. Next, we're going to talk about volume and capacity. Like the amount of water in my water jug, my water bottle over there, or the amount of milk you use in your cake recipe or mac and cheese recipe. So in the customary system, we use like teaspoons and tablespoons. I'm not actually going to write those because those are rather small. Oops. We use fluid ounces to represent volume, and that is abbreviated FLOZ, fluid ounces. We sometimes use cups. That's abbreviated with a C. We use pints. That's abbreviated PT. We use quarts. QT. Gallons. Abbreviated GAL. And even more. There's cubic feet and so on. Those are all customary units. In the metric system, we just use liters, abbreviated with a capital L. And again, just like you could have millimeters, you could have milliliters or centiliters. There are kiloliters. There's even more abbreviations. There's deciliters and so on. All right, next we're going to talk about weight and mass. Oops, that didn't do the thing. There we go. So weight and mass refers to how heavy something is, the amount of mass that it contains. And in the customary system, we use ounces, abbreviated OZ. So we had fluid ounces, that's talking about the volume of water or of a liquid, and then weight or mass of an object, we would refer to that as just plain old ounces. More familiar, we have pounds, abbreviated LB or LBS, as well as tons. And that's usually abbreviated with a capital T. A ton is 2,000 pounds. And 1 pound is 16 ounces. So when you're born, your weight is often expressed in pounds and ounces. You'll say, oh, you're 7 pounds, 4 ounces. All right. Weight in the metric system, that is grams, or a lowercase g. And again, you could have milligrams, centigrams, you could have kilograms, you could have, there's hectograms, there's other abbreviations in the metric system, all going with grams. So meters, that's length, liters, that's volume, grams is weight. Last but not least, we have time. And time is nice actually because it's the same in both. So let's see. So time, smallest unit of time that we'll usually work with is a second, abbreviated SEC. Then going up from there, we have minutes, MIN, hours, and that would be HR, days. We usually just use a D, lowercase d for days. And then we could go weeks. Usually we use WK for that. We could do months, we could do years, and so on. And time, those units are the same in the customary and the metric system. Let's talk a little bit more about the metric system, because that is something that not many of us are familiar with, I'd wager a guess. But it's a pretty cool system. So the metric system always is in terms of some base unit. So in the metric system column that we made above, I just had 1 unit, meters, that's a base unit. Liters is a base unit. Grams is a base unit. And then I can talk about some smaller version of that meter, maybe a millimeter, a centimeter, or I could talk about it in larger terms. A decameter, a hectometer, a kilometer. So from your base unit, we can start to kind of build up or down. So if I have 1 of my base unit, that is equivalent. If I have a deca of that 1 unit, that is 10 of the base then. So a decameter is 10 meters. If I build up further, a hectometer, that is 100 of that base unit. If I build up even one more time, a kiloliter or a kiloliter is 1,000 liters, or 1,000 of that base unit. So all of those build up, kilo being the biggest, and then we work our way down to that base, and then we can break it down even further. So if I am talking about a decimeter, that is 0.1 of a meter, or of a unit. One that might be a little bit more familiar to you is centi. Let me write that a little better. A centimeter is 0.01 of that unit. And finally, the smallest that we're going to work with in the metric system is milli. A millimeter is 0.001. It's 1,000th of a unit. So we have the biggest prefix, kilo, all the way down to the smallest milli. And again, these base units are meters, liters, and grams. There are more, but we're just going to focus on these three. So for reference, right, if I'm working with kilometers or kilometers, 1 kilometer is 1,000 meters. 1 millimeter is 1,000th or 0.01 of a meter, which means then if I look at it the other way, 1 meter is 1,000 millimeters. So please keep in mind that a kilo is a very large unit. A kilometer is a long distance, whereas a millimeter is not. All right. In general, if you are going to convert from a smaller, I'm going to start actually with a bigger unit. If you're going to convert from a bigger unit to a smaller unit, you are going to multiply. Think about if you are converting miles, which is a big unit, into feet, which is a smaller unit. 1 mile is 5,280 feet. So if I want to figure out how many feet are in 7 miles, I'm going to multiply 7 times 5,280 because there are a lot of little bitty itty feet in 1 mile. So if you're converting to a smaller unit, you are going to multiply. I don't know why I'm just loving the stars right now. And then if you were going to convert to a bigger unit, you will divide. Right. And this is symbol for division. Last thing I want to point out before we do some examples, this is just a definition of a unit rate, because that is something else you might encounter when you're working with measurements. A unit rate compares an amount to its unit of measurement. Usually 1 unit per another. So for example, miles per hour, or dollars per pound. All right, so unit rate, usually you're comparing some amount to a unit of measurement, and that measurement is usually over 1 miles per 1 hour, or dollars per 1 pound. Let's look at some examples. Example 1, we are going to convert 8 kilometers into centimeters. So 8 kilometers. A kilometer is a big unit, whereas a centimeter is a relatively small unit, right? So I am converting big to small here. So I'm going to end up probably multiplying to make this 8 into a bigger number. There are more than 8 centimeters in 8 kilometers. So what could I do here? I'm going to use the metric system, and I honestly use an acronym based on the notes here. So notice if I start with kilo, we have the letters K, H, D, B, D, C, M. So an acronym we use a lot is King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk. Another one you might see is King Henry doesn't usually drink chocolate milk. Either way, this acronym, King Henry doesn't usually drink chocolate milk. Either way, if I'm using, oh, I don't know why I did that. I just wanted to change this to a B because I like the B representing base unit. So King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk. But sometimes you see a U instead. 8 kilometers is what we are starting with. So we have kilometers and I want to convert it into centimeters. So I am going to count the number of levels we have to go down. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which means 8 kilometers can be converted to centimeters by simply moving the decimal 5 places to the right. So move decimal 5 to the right, or you're really just multiplying this times 10 to the 5th power, right? We're multiplying it by 10 5 times is essentially what's happening. I really like to think of it though as taking 8 and moving that decimal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units. So it's now here, and I'll put in all these placeholder zeros, which tells me then that 8 kilometers is really 800,000 centimeters. So 8 kilometers is 800,000 centimeters. Number 2, we are going to convert 14 minutes into hours. And we are going to round to the nearest hundredth. All right, so in the OMHS, I did put a cheat sheet with different conversion factors that you might need. As you go through these types of problems, a conversion factor is, for example, 1 hour is 60 minutes, right? The number of smaller units, minutes, in an hour is 60. So how will I navigate this? Again, this is a conversion factor. I'm going to begin with this 14 minutes. So I'm going to take 14 minutes and I am going to just set that as a fraction over 1. And now I'm going to multiply by this conversion factor, but I'm going to do so in a way so that the minutes cancels out and we end up with just hours. So if we're going to do that, minutes is going to have to be on the bottom. And we know in 1 hour, right, attaching 1 with hours, we have 60 minutes. So I use this conversion factor to create this fraction. And now I have minutes in the top and in the bottom, so those actually just cancel. And the only units I have left now are hours. So when I do this multiplication, my answer is in hours like we would like. So to get my answer, I'm just going to multiply across the top, 14 times 1 over 1 times 60. And again, this is just focusing now in hours. So this is 14 over 60 hours. And it said we wanted to round to the nearest hundredth. So if I put this into my calculator, it gets me about 0.233 repeating, right? Or not about, it is 2.33 repeating. Which means it rounds to about 0.23. If I want to round to the hundredths, the current decimal or current digit in the hundredths place is this 3. So I will cut it off after the 3 and I'll look, does the next number have enough power to make us round up? And the 3 that comes after the hundredths place is not large enough. If it is 5 or higher, then we would round up. So we will simply just write this as 0.23 hours. And this makes sense because 14 minutes is a little bit less than a quarter of an hour, or 0.25. Your car uses 4 gallons of gas to travel 132 miles. Part A. How many miles can the car go on 1 gallon? So we're traveling a certain number of miles, right? With each gallon of gas we use. So we're looking at the unit rate miles per gallon, and I really want to simplify the fact that we can travel 132 miles using 4 gallons of gas. So let's simplify this to try to get a ratio that's over 1 per 1 gallon. And I can actually divide 132 and 4 by 4. So 132 divided by 4 is 33 miles per 1, because 4 divided by 4 is 1 gallon. So just by simplifying the ratio that I set up using what we know, that every 4 gallons gets us 132 miles, I know then that 1 gallon is 33 miles. 132 divided by 4 is 33. Part B, and the last part of this lesson video, is how many gallons will you need to travel at least 440 miles. And you're going to buy only whole gallons, meaning you can't buy a half of a gallon or 0.25 of a gallon. So let's think about this. We know that we can go 33 miles per gallon of gas. And I know also that we need to travel 440 miles, at least. So 440 miles over 1, and we're going to multiply this times this unit rate, right? 33 miles essentially is 1 gallon of gas. So if I want to figure out the number of gallons that I need here, I'm going to set up my proportions so that miles cancels and we get just gallons by itself. So in 1 gallon of gas, we will be able to travel 33 miles, just kind of flipping that ratio around. And now notice that I have miles in the numerator and denominator in both of these fractions. So that's going to cancel and our units will just be gallons. So I'm going to multiply 440 times 1. And then we're going to divide that by 1 times 33. And whatever this is will be in gallons. So 440, sorry, 440 over 33 is essentially what we have here. And if you divide 440 by 33, this is actually about 13.3 gallons. I think it's 13.3 repeating, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see. Yes, 13.3 repeating. So if I'm buying only whole gallons, I'm going to need more than 13 gallons. Which means we need 14 gallons, at least, to travel the 440 miles we need to go. Please let me know what questions you have on this lesson, and I look forward to seeing you in class.